How much do you know about the history of cyberpunk? Let's go on a cyber voyage of discovery. Cyberpunk is a genre with a rich history, which has its roots in new wave science fiction of the 1960s and 70s, from authors like Philip K. Dick, J.G. Ballard, and Samuel Delany. Philip K. Dick's 1968 novel Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep is considered one of the forerunners of the genre, and was the inspiration for Ridley Scott's landmark 1982 cyberpunk film Blade Runner. The genre gets its name from the title of a short story, Cyberpunk, written by Bruce Bethke, which appeared in Amazing Stories in 1983. Bethke later recalled that to come up with the title for the story, he made two lists of root words, one for technology and one for troublemakers. Then he combined them together in different arrangements until one stuck. That one was cyberpunk. In 1984, William Gibson's novel Neuromancer is released and becomes a smash hit. Neuromancer is still considered by many to be the definitive cyberpunk novel. Following its release, the term cyberpunk started to spread into popular culture more and more artists started to expand on the themes and ideas of the genre. Inspired by Ridley Scott's Blade Runner, game designer Mike Pondsmith started designing a tabletop RPG that would later be called Cyberpunk 2020. This TTRPG would become another one of the genre's cornerstones. In 1989, another cyberpunk TTRPG called Shadowrun was released, which blended fantasy elements into the genre. Shadowrun would gain a large fan base and be adapted into a card game and a series of video games. Meanwhile, in Japan, a whole other cyberpunk scene had emerged, and it was about to explode. In 1988, Katsuhiro Otomo adapted his own groundbreaking cyberpunk manga series into an animated film, and that film was called Akira. Akira is a masterpiece of cyberpunk storytelling, and considered by many to be one of the greatest animated films ever made. It would go on to influence countless filmmakers across the globe, from Rian Johnson with Looper to the Duffer Brothers with Stranger Things. The cyberpunk genre exploded onto the video game scene in the 90s as well, with games like Deus Ex and System Shock. Renowned Japanese developer Squaresoft even joined in, with a heavily cyberpunk-inspired Final Fantasy VII. In 1995, the animated film Ghost in the Shell was released, based on Masamune Shirow's manga. Ghost in the Shell would go on to become an international hit, and brought a heady, philosophical take on cyberpunk to audiences with an elegant sense of style that has stood the test of time. Deeply inspired by Ghost in the Shell, two then brothers, the Wachowskis, approached Warner Brothers about a new film they had written called The Matrix. The Matrix would become an international phenomenon, grossing millions and leading to two generally underwhelming sequels, and a very much not underwhelming collection of animated films called The Animatrix. In 2017, a long-awaited sequel to Blade Runner 2049, directed by sci-fi master Denis Villeneuve, is released. Then, in the not-so-radical year of 2020, game studio CD Projekt Red released a video game adaptation of Cyberpunk 2020 tabletop RPG called Cyberpunk 2077. The hype surrounding the launch was massive, but issues with bugs in some of the releases caused it to receive mixed reviews and a lot of hate on the internet. Despite these setbacks, CD Projekt Red partnered with renowned anime production company Studio Trigger to make an animated series called Cyberpunk Edgerunners, which released in 2022 to critical and audience acclaim, and in our minds stands along with Akira and Ghost in the Shell as one of the best examples of animation in the cyberpunk genre. And that brings us to now.
You're looking at now, sir.
Where two filmmakers turned game designers are trying to write their own chapter in the book of cyberpunk with their trading card game Neuroscape. I hope this has been an informative dive into the history of cyberpunk. I know we learned a lot while researching it. There's a ton of awesome cyberpunk things that we just didn't have time to fit into this video, so if we missed your favorite cyberpunk series or game, let us know in the comments, and we'll try to make another video about it in the future.